Sweet. We have been talking a little bit about relationships and God's plan and design for sex, and we actually went through a lot of awkward analogies, and I'm going to try to avoid any euphemisms that I can up here on stage. I don't want us to leave scarred. I want us to leave healed. That'd be terrible. So that's my goal. But I also know that this is one of those series that's going to potentially step on some of your toes, and in the sense that I know that some of this is going to be really asking you to really evaluate the kind of person that you want to put in your life, the kind of person that you're going to pursue, the kind of person you're going to be in relationships. I also know that some of you guys are already in relationships, and I know that it's going to cause you guys to really think about what kind of relationship are you in? Is it one that's honoring God? Is it one that's really pursuing God the way that He wants? Are you willing to trust Him in that? Are you willing to trust Him for His best for you? And I know that it's also an invitation for those of you that aren't in relationships to trust that God has His best plans for you, and to trust that when you're walking with Him, that's the best place to be, whether it's in a relationship or not. This isn't necessarily a goal to get everyone hooked up in relationships, or to say that the end result is finding that perfect somebody. The end result is walking as God intended you to walk. And I hope that we can do that. And in your C groups, I hope you have the freedom to not just kind of talk about the topic, but eventually, as we take the next couple weeks to talk about it, maybe even open up about your relationships and allow each other to speak into it. Some of you guys need to speak truth and love to other people that are struggling in a walk. And we're going to talk a little about that as we get down the line. But so I just know this is going to kind of get up in our business. And so thank you for being willing to do that with us. Maybe you aren't, you're just here, but thank you for being here. So, hey guys, you're welcome. Come on and grab a seat. Anyway, so I'm going to revisit where we left off last week. The first point was this, is that sex was God's idea. God created sex. Sex is God's idea. He created it. He made it, and He called it good. God blesses sex. He blessed us, and one of the ways He made us was to express His image to the world and to show the world His story about how we love the world, create for the world, be in relationship with one another. And one of the ways we tell that story, crazy and oddly enough, is by how we relate to one another, male and female, and how we have sex. It's a good thing. So He called it good. But the second thing is that last week we talked about sex is only good when talked about in God's context, like a flame. It's good. It heats up fires. It cooks our food. It runs our engines. That heat is good in a lot of places, but out of the context, it destroys, it burns, it hurts, it leaves scars, it damages. So sex is a good thing, but we've got to trust that the context that God's created for it is in a marriage relationship. And then lastly, that our relationship in a marriage isn't about getting purity and holding off and just waiting until you're married to have sex, but our whole relationship is meant to tell God's story. It's meant to reflect His love and His grace and His mercy. And so the lens that we wanted to challenge you to look at this is, don't just add the relationship thing to your faith, but that your faith has to determine how you pursue your relationships. And that's a real big difference, because a lot of times we have our faith, our walk with God, our beliefs about God, and then we kind of do relationships differently. And I see so many people and so many students and adults and even people that have later on gotten married, they go to church, they get so frustrated in their marriage, they struggle in their relationships, they struggle in their sex lives, they struggle in all that stuff. And I believe a lot of that's because they have this part of their life, which is their relationship life, and then they have their faith life, which kind of just stays inside. But the reality is, what God has intended for you to believe when you follow Him and pursue Him is that should drive everything, including your relationships. And so tonight, when we talk about relationships, I want to kind of introduce topics like, what kind of person do you want to be, and what kind of person do you want to date? What kind of person do you want to be in a relationship, and what kind of person do you want to date? Now, we get this, we've talked about this before. We all have those kind of ideas, and we've read blogs, and there's no shortage of tests and quizzes on Cosmo magazine. I've done so many of them. I've just seen them. I just heard about them. I had a sister. But I remember doing those quizzes, seriously, side story. There's going to be a lot of those little side stories. I used to do those to see if I can actually match up with people. I would go in my sister's room and I'd take her 17 magazine. I'm oh, finally, I'm going to find out if it's going to work with me and Kristen, or if it's going to work with me and Julie. And I'm doing the quiz and I'm dang it. Or what this person's lipstick says about that person. I'm I don't know what their lipstick looks like. So the next time they're putting on lipstick, I'm what is it? Sorry, hey, what's up? I just read, cool. Whatever. Anyways, there's so many really weird quizzes and talk about what to say, what everything says, and everything becomes this myth, and it's a horoscope, and we kind of measure all these different ideas about what a relationship should look like and be. But really, the big thing that we need to decide, hopefully even beginning tonight, is you need to determine the kind of person you want to be in a relationship, and not just kind of just out there general ideas, but like specifics. And same thing about the kind of relationship that you want to be. Not pigeonholing somebody into a relationship saying they must be these 6 criteria or therefore I will not date them and they will be out of my, but not that rigid, but we have some qualities and characteristics. It's really important that you decide that first, and this is why. I love this book. It's called The Song of Solomon, and it's honest, and it's real, and if you want to read it, go home, it is super sexual. So, like, just want to put that out there ahead of time. Yes, the Bible gets sexual. Yeah, but I said that so weird and creepy. It gets sexual. But you go read. It's called The Song of Solomon. It was written by Solomon, and it's a celebration. It's like the whole thing is a song, like a musical, that portrays the story of a woman and a man as they get to know each other, date each other, court each other, and then be with each other. And it's loaded with euphemisms. Yes, euphemisms referring to different parts of bodies and celebrating stuff, but this is what I love about it. Not that it does that, but the fact that this is in God's word. This is a part of, like, God wanted, when he was putting the Bible together and he was helping us understand what it means to love and be in a relationship, God's like, whoa. We need this book in here because I made the human body to be celebrated with another person in the context of marriage, and it's a good thing. Not awkward, but to be celebrated. So, hey, if you're bored, actually, this book was actually considered so, like, racy that Jewish boys weren't allowed to read it until after, like, the age of 13. Yeah, crazy. And a lot of girls weren't even allowed to read it because it was just, like, seen as, like, that heavy. So, anyways, that's the book that we're quoting from. But, getting back to the point, this is why it's important that you decide who you want to date. And I love this passage. It comes from Solomon 8:4. I'm going to read this again. It says, "Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you." And it says this a couple times in there. It says, "Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." Do not awaken love until it so desires. And our people got stuck on the first part. But do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. There's this idea that love, when it wakes up in us, this kind of like romantic love is the one that it's referring to, this desire for another person, not just a friendship, not just like an interest, but like this like hunger for another person, that when it wakes up in you, it kind of takes over your life. And a lot of times when we're in love, or when we feel love, or when we feel infatuated, we throw a lot of reason out the window. We throw a lot of thinking out the window. And it's a super excited time. But do you guys know what I'm talking about? How many of you guys have ever felt, and you maybe don't have to raise your hand on this, but if you're brave enough, maybe you can. How many of you guys have ever had a crush on somebody or started a relationship with someone, and like it just like really fast kind of took on a life of its own in your heart and mind? Like you were just like in other places somewhere, all that good stuff. And yet, whether it's every time One Direction comes out, I don't know, that's stupid. What? Did you guys even listen to One Direction? They're only Two Direction now, but we'll figure that out. They'll figure it out. It's all good. But it takes on a life of its own. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, for me, when I first found myself liking somebody or having a crush, there's a difference between, like, seeing that somebody and, like, thinking about somebody and kind of liking that somebody. But when you start to really fixate and let your mind go there, it awakens something in you that takes on a life of its own and almost controls you. Like, I don't know about you, but, like, I feel sick to my stomach when I'm around those persons. They call it the butterflies, and that's a gross image, by the way, butterflies in your stomach. Ugh. But you get that like nervousness. You feel like you can't eat. Like your mouth is like pasty and your palms are sweaty. Yeah, dry and gross. Like you have all these different things that go on. Like it controls your body. Like you would do weird things when you love somebody. Like you write their name on your hand, or you write your initials on like tests and then with tests and stuff. And when people are like talking, you're spelling it in your food at the dinner table. What are you doing, sweetie? And nothing. Just eating my food, Mom. Anyways, we do weird things, though, when we like somebody. We do all these really crazy things. We think about them. We call them. We try to, like, figure out their schedule at school so that we pass them in the hallway. Like, we're like, okay, wait a minute. If I go down this hallway, I never see that person. But I can make it if I, like, jet and, like, I'm... Open my locker. Go back. Going down the B hallway. What's up? How's it going? You're like rushing late. Like you do crazy. Anyone ever do that? I did that. Like somebody, okay, am I the only guy that's ever like done that? I used to like adjust that stuff. I'm a hopeless romantic, okay? Anyways, but you do like weird things. You write your names on your hands. You write the notes. You send them notes. You think about them. You talk about them. You ask people. You try to work your way into their friend circle. Like, hey, she talk about me? She think about me? What's she like? What's she do? You do other crazy things. Like you start to like find her on Facebook. You stalk her. You look through her window. You follow her in the bushes when she walks her dog. You steal her toothbrush. You start to learn her favorite meals. You memorize her social security number. You hack her email, and you wear her dresses. What? No, sorry. Didn't do any of those things. Sadly enough, I did a few of those things, but I'm not going to let you know which ones they were. I'm not going to tell you. You can just guess. Everyone's like, it was the dresses. It was definitely the dresses. No, because I'm too portly. Truth be told. But you do weird things when you like somebody, you love somebody, it takes on a life of its own. I had this girl I really loved in 5th grade, and her name was Heather. She was so cute, and we were in choir together. And I didn't know I liked Heather until all of a sudden we were like in choir, and I had to do this like choir thing. And she came up and she played the flute. And she got up there and she was so confident, and she's, and I was like, I like her a lot. And I'm supposed to be singing my parts, but I'm just like, and you feel like faint, and you go like, what? And I'm just totally like, and so like I started thinking about her all the time, and I may have shared the story one time in Rev, and I don't remember when I did, so I apologize. But like there was this time where I seriously started like daydreaming about like how I was gonna get her to notice me, and one of my favorite like sort of like get her to notice me like fantasies in my mind was this idea that like she was gonna all of a sudden be on the playground, like which was called like Timberley at the time, and like or Timberland, and I'm like, I'm gonna get her to notice me, and all of a sudden these thugs were gonna like take her money and beat her up. And there was lots of them, but you know what? It's a good thing. She was helpless. She was a damsel in distress, and she was, oh no, what am I going to do? And so I was like, I was gonna go there, and I was gonna fight them, and I like fought them in my mind. But like, like when you're like little, that you think like if you actually do this, it makes you stronger. And like you're like, so I'm like, guys, and I would like lower my voice, and I would do this, and I would act this out in my bathroom. And like, I'm sitting, and I seriously would the shower's done, I finally get my whitey tighties on, and I'm like brushing my teeth and stuff, and I'm like, I got a few minutes in here, looking in the mirror, I'm like practicing, I'm like, you lay off of her, she's mine. And like I go through this whole thing, and I like literally was fighting them, and I'm like swinging my arms, because you can't punch. When you're doing this, you're unfightable, really. And so I'm like doing this, but I'm swinging my arms, and I get down on my back, because I'm like, they're on top of me, and I go like this, and boom, and I kick up in the air. The only problem was, right above me was glass shelves. And I knock glass shelves on the floor and mess everywhere, and I listen here, Mike, you okay? Fine. I'll take care of you guys later. I made a mess. But you just do stupid, weird things when you like somebody. That's a dumb story. But it's a true one. You do weird things. And so the Bible says, don't awaken love until it so desires. Because it kind of like controls us. It controls our feelings. And when we do that, we don't always make good decisions. And if you don't know the kind of person you want to be with, there's a good chance you're going to get infatuated. You're going to like somebody. You might even get involved with somebody. You might even start making decisions with somebody that start taking you down a road that's not going to honor God, and it's going to take you down a road that may lead to more pain or hardship, or later on, a painful breakup, because that relationship was never meant to be. But you allowed something to kind of control you and blind you from the stuff. Sometimes it gets called drunk on love. You guys heard that phrase, or drunk love? Good old Beyonce, the late great prophet. You guys are good singers. Anyways, drunk love. But she wasn't the first person to coin that. I love the way that this is put here. And it's Song of Solomon. Again, it's honest, and it celebrates the good and the bad, and it shows the struggle of a relationship, but it's all like honoring to God as they work together. It says this in Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 2. So right in the beginning, he says this. She says, this is her. She says, let me kiss him with the kisses of his mouth. Let me kiss him with the kisses of his mouth. For your love is more delightful than wine. That word love, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but it's this word, it's dode. And it's like the cuddling, like loving, close, intimate, caring kind of love. So it's like when I'm with you, like your love is more delightful than wine. Like when we feel that stuff, when it's in the right context, it's a beautiful thing, but it can impair our judgment. And let me kiss you with the kisses of his mouth. I wasn't going to share. I was laughing when I was typing this out because it reminded me of a story. I'm going to share this one too, just so you can maybe feel less awkward about your own existence and stuff. But the kisses of his mouth, getting that first kiss is an interesting thing, and finding out like when you're going to kiss that person, if it's going to happen, like how are you going to do it? Like you plan it out in your mind. You plan about how you're going to get your arm around him in the theater. Like I used to do all these different things. Like I was with a girl once, and I knocked her purse on the floor in the movie theater. So she'd bend down, and I put my hand back there because the problem was it was like right there. So when she put her head back, she like wasn't expecting it. So it was like whiplash. It was like, oh. What's up? How you doing? Okay. But kisses of his mouth, for some reason, it totally drew me back to the story. I went out to go see The Lion King with this girl named Sarah my junior year. Yeah, the circle of life, and it moves us all. anyways, Simba. So it was beautiful, the clouds, everything's beautiful, and I take her out to see this thing, and I'm like, this is the most romantic movie ever. Can you feel the love tonight? I mean, this is awesome. I take her home. I'm about to leave away for I got a scholarship to do this thing at Eastern University, so I'm about to leave. This is my shot, because if a few weeks go away in the summer, a couple weeks is like an eternity, and I'm not gonna be able to talk with her because we didn't have cells back then. I'd be crazy. Anyway, so I gotta do something. This is my chance to make our move. And I really totally thought at this moment, when you're pulling in, and if you're not gonna get out of the car, this is one of those, I'm gonna walk her to the doorstep because it's way too much pressure to take her up there, because then it's okay, then you totally are walking me because you just walk someone to the doorstep and you're like, all right, you got in the house, see you later. You know why you're walking someone to a doorstep. And so I can't do that because I don't know if we're there yet, but I kind of thought, well, man, we're gonna have our first kiss. The kisses of her mouth. And so I thought she was going for a kiss because we parked and we were talking for a couple minutes, but we're both looking straight ahead. Because we know if you get that eye contact, you're and it's both on our minds. Well, it was time for her to go, and I totally thought this is it. So she starts to lean over and face me, and I'm like, yeah! So, and that's also that weird question of is it gonna be an open mouth kiss or a closed mouth kiss? And I'm like, you know what, it's gonna be an open mouth kiss. So I'm hey. The only problem was she was turning to reach in the back for her purse. Yeah, so she's leaning back for her purse, and so I got side mouth and tooth on the side of her face. Literally. So she's going back to get her something hey, conk, oh no. And it was instantaneous, but in slow motion it was hey, oh no, clunk, oh no. Ejector seat. Terrible. I don't know. I wasn't going to tell that story, but I just did anyway. All right. There's no redeeming quality to that story. Okay, other than you do stuff that you aren't thinking fully through when you're infatuated with someone. That's the only way I could tie it back in. Sorry, we got to keep moving. We have real things to talk about. So, but your love is more delightful than wine. I mean, that's just a beautiful picture, but again, we don't always make the best and most well thought through choices when that happens. So tonight, I want you to think about, if you've liked someone, pay attention to that feeling. Pay attention to what happens when something awakes in you so that you can kind of know, hey, okay, whoa, there's something going on in me and I like them. And then start to think about it. Does that match up with the kind of person that I want to be when I date? And does that match up with the kind of person that I do want to date? Sometimes we can't always determine, our hearts sometimes like and feel infatuated towards people, regardless of character or personality and that kind of stuff. But tonight, I really believe if we're going to be a revolution, if we want to be a different kind of people that breaks the norm for the world and breaks the statistics of marriage and really shows the world what real love looks like and puts Jesus' love on display when we're married, I think a lot of heartache and a lot of things could be avoided if we take some honest time in your own heart and mind to do it now. And it's not going to happen from listening to me, but it's really going to happen as you kind of sort this out with God and God's word and kind of ask yourself, where are you in all of this? Because the truth is, again, I want us to be a revolution beyond just this 4 years you're in high school. We prayed about it in our leaders meeting when we were over there right before the night happened. It's we want you guys to be a revolution for the rest of your lives. We want you guys to go against the grain of the culture for the rest of your lives, but not just because you're showing them what you're against, but you're showing the world a different way to live. When Jesus came, not only did he provide a way back to the Father by dying on a cross, but he also showed us how to be the way, how to walk the way, how to live the way as God intended us to live all the way. And that goes against the grain. And the truth is, and this is a slide here, is if you want what everybody else has, then do what everybody else does. In your relationships, in the end of the day, when you're married or when you're out of high school, when you're in college, when you're on your own, when you have the freedom to make the decisions for yourself, if you want what everybody else has in the world, simply do what everybody else does. Simple as that. But if you guys want something different, if you want something countercultural, if you want something that's good and satisfying and long-lasting and God-honoring, then you've got to do something different. And you got to recognize that marriage and everything that we have beyond that is progression. And all your thoughts about dating and everybody that you pursue and all that stuff now happens to build into that who you become later. It doesn't just happen. You don't just have a godly marriage later. You don't just have a godly life later. It happens when you decide to live a godly life now. And so I want to read this passage again because I think we shared it last week, but I want to read it again because I think it really paints the picture of the kind of relationship I think that we ultimately do want. There's some language in there that's confusing for us in our today's culture, so I'll try to explain it as we go. But we're going to kind of break down a few things of the kind of people we want to become and the kind of people we want to pursue. You guys still with me? We're still good? We're going to do this? Because, think about it. At the end of the day, how much heartache you can avoid and how much love you can experience if you trust that God's ways really are best for you. If you trust him with your life and your salvation and the forgiveness of sins, why not trust him with everything else, especially when it comes to relationships? And so we're going to go back to this passage. It's in Ephesians. And Paul is using this idea of relationships to kind of talk about what Jesus has done for us should affect how we relate with one another. And as we relate with one another as husband and wife, it should help us to understand more of what Jesus did for us. So ultimately, the purpose of your relationship is to experience the love of Jesus in a different level and to show the world Jesus' love in a different level, but then also to understand what he's done for you at a different level. I think I just said that, I'm repeating myself. So here, I'm going to read this to you guys. You're going to follow along with me. This is the first one. Now, don't click so fast. We're going to stop kind of verse by verse. But it starts by saying, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. You can leave it right there. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. That's a really kind of a big word, but the idea that Paul's talking about, that in a relationship, it's mutual submission. Like, I am laying down my rights and who I am for you, and you're laying down your rights and who you are for me. It's a mutual thing. It says in Song of Psalms, I'm my beloved's and my beloved is mine. There's a sense of that we have this mutual ownership of one another. But that word submit is a scary word. Like, if I'm going to submit my life to someone, if I'm going to lay down my life and trust somebody else, what kind of person do I want to trust my life's hands in? If I'm really going to honor what it says here and really submit to another person, then I have to fully trust them with everything and all that I am. I have to fully trust them with who I'm becoming. I have to trust them with the person in the heart that I am. The person that I am right now. I have my hopes, my dreams, my fears, my worries, my insecurities, all those different things about my life. I need to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to put them in your hands. And to be honest, it was really scary for me. In a lot of my early dating relationships, I would not say I would submit myself to them. In some ways, I thought I was better than them. There's other relationships I knew I was using them. There's other relationships where they were just meeting a need for me, or I thought we had something for a time. But for me to give my whole entire heart to, whoa, no way. But the kind of relationship that God calls us to is one where we lay down our lives, we open up our hearts, we lay bare ourselves before another person completely exposed. It's almost like an invitation to go back to the Garden of Eden when both Adam and Eve were naked and felt no shame. When you can be completely shameless and open, without shame to another person and completely trust your life in their hands. When you're dating somebody, are you looking for somebody that ultimately you can trust your life with in their hands? And for that to happen, I need to know there's certain things about that person that they're going to be that for me. I need to know for my wife, Michelle, that there's certain qualities that she possesses so that when I do lay myself and I submit myself down before her, that I could trust her with it. And for Michelle, you better believe when she was looking for me and when we found each other, that there were certain things about the guy that she wanted to marry that she said, there's got to be some characteristics and some quality traits of this person before I'm ever going to live that out. Because if I'm going to live that out, that's a scary verse. And he goes on to say this. He says, wives, submit. He's going to go on to talk about how we both submit to each other. So it starts with the wives. He says, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as you do to the Lord. Basically, as you've given your life to follow Jesus and love him and trust your heart, your soul, everything, your deepest longings, your prayers, your cries, everything that you give to God in your private life, give to your husband. Be completely open for him and submit to him, follow his lead. For the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Say right there. These are some big words too. But for the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is head of the church. And a lot of times this gets abused. And I've sat in marital counselings where I've heard a husband say, she's not submitting to me. I'm like, she's not submitting to you because you're being a tool. That's why she's not submitting to you. You are not acting like Christ, who is our head. Well, I'm supposed to be like Jesus in the relationship. Then act like Jesus in the relationship. You're just being a jerk who wants to play Xbox and drink his drink his potato chips, drink his pop and eat his potato chips, while your wife does all the work, no one's going to want to submit to that. But the wife is called to find a person that she is so comfortable with, so humbled with, that she could say, you know what, I'm going to trust my heart in your life and with your life, and I'm willing to even just put myself down and say, I'm going to let you kind of take the lead. But the only way that the guy's going to do this, we can get to this later, is that if the guy acts like Jesus in the relationship. That doesn't mean he's the savior. It doesn't mean he's the boss. It doesn't mean he's some miracle worker. It's like, boy, you better be making some more water into wine to hang out with you. Boy, that was a stupid joke. It came off the top of my head, but I was like, I don't know. That was just whatever. But the first start is that we submit. So wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. So basically, remember, it starts with submitting to one another. Simply, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as you do to the Lord. Give everything to your husband, your hopes, your dreams, your hearts, everything, your humility. And then guys, it goes on to say this. Next verse. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also the wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Next verse. Now husbands. Now a lot of times it starts there, and a lot of times the feminists and other people get really upset at that verse, but the bigger act of submission, I want to ask you, who is it being asked of here? It says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Husbands, you're not off the hook. Guys, you're not off the hook. If you want to be the kind of relationship and the kind of guy that a girl's going to want to submit to, the kind of person that she's going to want to love and surrender in her life, her hearts, her hopes, her dreams, everything that you'd want, the intimacy that's being required there, then you need to take the lead by loving her as Christ loved the church. We know what love is because God loved us first. Men, you need to be the initiators of that love. You need to be the initiators of that humility. You need to be the initiators of that sacrifice. Your wife, your girl, your spouse, whoever is, should know what sacrifice looks like because you showed it to her first. You loved her first. Not that there's not mutual love, but a lot of times I see passivity in guys. I see guys sitting around and letting girls kind of do the leading, do the calling and that kind of stuff. And in some ways a bitterness grows up. But the relationships that flourish, guys, is like when you stop waiting for your wife to give you what you want, but instead you go and you give her everything first. Just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Jesus died for the church. Men, we're called to die for our wives. When you get in a relationship with someone, are you looking for a woman that you are willing to die for? Not just metaphorically speaking, but physically speaking. And not just physically speaking, but metaphorically speaking. You see what I did there? Because a lot of times we could say, you know what, I'll die for you, babe. I'll do anything for you want, but right now I'm in the middle of the game. What's up? What's up, buddy? Yeah, what's up? Dude, no. No, let's all go. No. You're in the wrong zone, dude. No, come here. Dude, you jerk. Tell that 10-year-old to get off. He's swearing too much. Okay. Yeah, what's up, babe? Yeah, no, okay, yeah, I got it. No, like it doesn't just happen in the middle of like your own lives. Like it's a day-to-day. Do you see what I was doing there, by the way? Were you there with me? Okay, thank you, because I don't know. But like, it's not just living our own life and doing our own thing and saying, one day I'll die for you. It's like a daily putting your needs before mine and trusting that when I do, because if we're mutually submitting to each other, if I put my needs down and put your needs before my own, and you're putting your needs down and putting mine before your own, then mutually, we're meeting each other's needs. And we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to say who's loving who more, because we're just loving each other equally. And he goes on to say to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with the water of the word. I love that, just to make her holy. Like your job, men, is to lift up your bride so that she just feels holy, blameless, pure, spotless, confident, beautiful. How many, I've sat across the room from so many girls who are crying because they don't feel like they are enough, that they have enough, that they look like enough. Men, our job is to help them see that they are, and that they are holy in God's sight. We could say that a lot of times from the Bible. We can talk about it, we could preach it in sermons, but when you have an opportunity to stand before her and love her through her insecurities, you are being the hands and feet of Jesus in a way that is just so profound and so awesome, and is again found beautifully in the context of a relationship, especially leading towards marriage. But that we're supposed to make her more like Jesus, and likewise, go into the next verse, and then to present herself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. Like your pursuit, your number one job, guys, is to help your wife feel like she is without blame or blemish, and that she is shining and radiant. And we celebrate that during the wedding. She comes down in a gown of white, and everyone stands up and looks at her and celebrates her, and everyone is just in awe. The mom's crying, and sometimes the groom's a blubbering mess, and then it says they walk down, there's this beautiful, radiant bride. And that is just to inaugurate the beginning of that process with you and her for the rest of your marriage. So in the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own body. He who loves his wife, next verse, loves himself. After all, no one has ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. Now, these are weird words, but in the ancient world, like women sometimes were seen as commodity. Wives were seen as sometimes as property. And it was just sort of seen as like an add-on into their life. And Paul enters into this world and says, no. Like if you love the wife like you love your own body. You take care of her like you take care of your own body. And I love sometimes having this conversation. I just had it like last year with somebody who was really upset. We were going through marital counseling, and I saw that verse, and she's like, there's no way I want that read at my wedding. I'm like, well, let's just revisit it for a minute. And it's like, and just look at the verses. Who has more submitting to do in this situation? The guys or the girl? And she's looked at verse after verse, like, wow, there's a lot more the guy is called to do than the girl. So just want to make sure that we understand that this is really meant to level the playing field in a relationship where we could both submit to one another and express the kind of love and purity that God does. You guys following with me so far? Okay, because I know I'm rolling down. I spent more time there than I want to. So if we're going to find the kind of person that's going to do that for us, if you're going to find the kind of wife that you're willing to do that for, because again, guys, I know that sometimes we get in a relationship because we feel attracted to a girl, or things get going on, or we start thinking with other parts of our body than other parts of our body, if you know what I'm talking about, and we kind of get into that situation and things are going good, and all of a sudden we feel like this obligation to keep a relationship going. From whatever reason or not, we see this thing to going, and all of a sudden we realize we've gotten in a relationship with someone that we don't want to serve. Someone that we don't want to die for, someone that we don't want to like submit and surrender to. Girls, sometimes we submit and surrender ourselves to a guy because we think that that's going to give us love, that's going to give us affection, that's going to give us the stuff that we want. And we've given them our whole hearts and our hands, and all of a sudden we start to feel like they're just abusing that. And so we slowly start taking ourselves back from that relationship. But we do it, and with every part of ourselves we take back, we do so resentfully, and we start to kind of hold this like bitterness between one another. But sometimes because of sex and the power of relationships and physicality, we just get stuck in this thing and we don't know how to get out of it, and we just move on. It's like, what else are we going to do? We might as well just get married. We might as well just do the right thing. Just get married. Go ahead. And all of a sudden we're in a relationship that just continues to breed and fester that lack of that stuff back together. So important to decide now what you're going to do. So the first thing is this. This is the first quality I want to challenge you guys to look for in your relationship. And the first thing is godly character. Godly character. It says this in Song of Solomon. Again, I love this verse here. But it says, pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. This is her singing about the guy. The first thing she's attracted to isn't necessarily the perfume. Perfume, just understand, it's kind of weird language, but back in those days, they did not have running water. And so a lot of times they would use oils and perfumes as a ways to kind of like deodorant or body stuff. And that was really, really important because, you don't want people to smell, because people do smell pretty bad. We've never noticed that. Another story for another time. But pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. And the perfume she's talking about is a really rare, elegant, expensive kind of perfume. Your name. The thing that she's drawn to is his name. Now, your name is not just your reputation, but your character. And just to clarify that a little bit for you guys, your character, like your reputation is what people think of you, but your character is who you really are when no one's looking. Your reputation is what people think about you, and you could put on a show. But your character, the underlying person of who you are, is who you are when no one's looking. And the name is always referred to as character. Anytime you read that in the Bible, when you talk about name, it refers to character. And his character is like perfume poured out. No wonder the women love you. As one person said, it's like they don't just love you because you're a hottie with a body, but they love you because you have character. And this is a good news for you guys, because I don't know if you've ever been in relationships, like, how did you end up with her? Doesn't make any sense. And you guys watch Parks and Rec? Jerry, and everyone's like, Jerry, how are you with your wife? Because, really, ultimately, girls are attracted to guys for lots of different reasons, but the guys that oftentimes girls will stay with are guys that have good character. A good name, and this is the next verse, is this. Proverbs 22:1 says this: a good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. Just make sure that your name is good. So if you want a godly marriage in the future, you need to start living a godly life now. That goes for you and the person that you're looking for. If you have to make the choice now to be with someone who's going to be honoring their life with God. And if you're with someone who's not honoring their life with God now, they're not likely going to honor their God in the future just because you guys got married. If you aren't honoring or living, I'll just repeat the same line there. And a lot of times I hear people say, I just don't, every time I go, all the guys that like me aren't this, or I always seem to go for the guy that's wounded or hurting and that kind of stuff, or the relationships I'm getting in just aren't just good for me. But the question is, and I love this statement, someone else said this, and I thought it was really, really powerful and profound. It says, if you don't like the fish that you're catching, then maybe you need to change the bait that you're using. If you're getting in relationships that aren't good, if you don't like the guys that you're attracting to yourself, or guys, if you don't like the girls that you're putting yourselves around, then you need to consider yourselves different. And say, if you don't like the fish that you're catching, then you need to consider the bait that you're using, and possibly even consider the pond that you're fishing in. Some of us are looking in the wrong circles. We're putting ourselves in around constant circles where people and all the people that we're around and relating with aren't going to be the kind of people that we're going to actually want to have that kind of relationship with. Are you putting yourself in circles that are going to be around people that want to honor God with their life and their character? And if you want someone in your life that's going to do what we just talked about in Ephesians, if you want someone who's going to love you and honor God with their life in your life, then you need to start doing it now, because like attracts like. Same attracts same when it comes to that situation. If you you need to start being the right person. And as you pursue God, you're going to find people that are pursuing God alongside of you. Last week we said how purity was not a line to come up to. It's as long as I don't go this far, I'm still good with God. So I'm just going to keep walking up to the line and fall off the cliff. But instead, purity is a direction. And as you start walking in the same direction with other people that are walking in the same direction with you, chances are you're going to find someone that's doing those things. So again, make the commitment to make godly character high on your list for priorities. Cool? All right. Is this getting to lecture time? Are we cool? Do I need to do something crazy to get us out of the funk? Raptor impression. Okay. We all back now? We all back? Okay. Do something crazy. Get up back here. All right. Raptors had nothing to do with what we're talking about, other than that was just an impression. So we're all back here. So godly characters, and I'm going to say godly character. Okay, so make the commitment to be the godly person and to find the godly person if you want that relationship for you in this second. Now I'm going to give a word to the guys, and I'm going to give a word to the girls, and we're going to close, and you guys are going to go break in your groups, and you're going to talk, and you're going to solve all the world's problems. You guys got that? So we're going to have a word to the guys, and then a word to the girls, and we're going to send you guys out. Okay, so a word to the guys. This goes back to what we talked about briefly, but it says this in Ephesians. It says, husbands, love your wives as Jesus Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing of the water with the word, to present herself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. Guys, this is your call. This is your charge in life. This is the kind of husband that you are called to be. If you're someone who says, I want Jesus to be in my life, and I've trusted him for my salvation, and I'm walking in the ways of God, then that is your call. That is your call. You're not excused of that call. We can't just say, I want Jesus, but I'm going to live my own life. I want to take Jesus and everything he gives for me, and that's the call we have, and it's a heavy call. And I want to challenge you guys to be the kind of guy that God wants you to be. And I want you guys to be, in the revolution, the kind of guys I'd let date my daughters. I love my daughters. Now, they're really young. If you want to date them, then you have to go to the police, but just being honest. But I love my daughters, and they are beautiful, and the more that I see them, the more that I treasure them, the more that I love them, the more that they make me cry just for no reason, the more that they make me in touch with different sides of my femininity and all this other stuff that I didn't even know I had, because I have these little girls, and they become my world, and I love them, and they're beautiful, and they're treasures, and I tell them that they're beautiful. I walk them up to mirrors every day. I pick up Isabella, and she plays a peekaboo game, but I walk her up to this mirror that we have on the wall, and it's a long one, and I take her up there, and I say, can I show you one of the prettiest girls in the world? And she goes, yeah, and I pick her up, and I show her herself in the mirror, and she hides. But one of these days, I hope that she doesn't hide. I want her to look at herself in the eyes and really believe that she's truly beautiful, and that she's truly treasured, and that she's truly safe. And the only way she's going to feel that way totally and fully in a relationship is if, guys, you're willing to do that for her. I want you guys to be the kind of guys that would date my daughters, but it's someone else's daughters. Because you're too old. It's just, whatever. You get it. But I want you to make them feel beautiful and make them feel loved. I want you to read God's word to them. Take the initiative. Don't just wait because you can't find the right devotional, or don't just come up with some kind of trite thing because you're just trying to add it to your lives. Make it your life. Make it your life's goal that in the relationship, when you're pursuing her, you're going to make her like Jesus. We're going to talk about this next week, but that's going to affect how you date her. Because if you're dating her for something else, for any other reason, then you're not going to make her like Jesus by trying to take her farther than she wants to go or letting her go farther than you want to go. Again, if you're going with godly character, then you can trust someone else with them because you both have the same goals in mind. And if that's the case, then guys, you need to do this. And I want to challenge you to be 3 P's with them, okay? Pastor, provider, and protector. Guys, your call to be the women is to be a pastor, provider, and protector. Let me explain those. Pastor is like a shepherd, someone who leads, guides, cares for, and nurtures, makes them feel safe, makes them feel loved for, cares for their needs, gives them some direction and leadership. Now, this isn't say the girls that you are feeble and need leadership. That's not what I'm saying. It's a mutual discussion. Michelle and I make so many decisions together because we are a team. We call ourselves Team Locket, based off of Pokemon Team Rocket. I don't know. It's weird. We say, or like after we do something, we're like Team Locket, boom. Or as Big Hero Suko say, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I watch too many animated movies because I have children. But we had Team Locket, so we do this together. But I'm taking the lead to make sure that she is cared for. I'm taking the lead. I'm not waiting for her to come to tell me that she has needs. Sometimes a guy, and I'm clueless. But most of the time, I try really hard to read her symbols and signals. And a lot of times, girls, you do things in code. And I'm learning the code as I go along. That Michelle has her own girl code. She'll come home, and if things are going fine and everything, and I'm like, say, she seems kind of upset, and she's kind of chopping the vegetables a little bit extra hard, and she's doing stuff at home. I'm like, how you doing? She's like, fine. Early in my marriage, I've been like, sweet, I'm gonna go play some video games. But now I know when she says, fine, she's not saying fine. When she comes home and she says, hi, she's not saying, hi. I'm like, hey, what's up? She's saying, open to me the depths of your soul and tell me the idiosyncrasies of your day. I wanna know everything that's going on. Hi. Like, I'm learning that there's a code that girls use in their lives. I understand that now. But to do that, I've got to be a leader. I've got to initiate. I've got to be like a pastor. I've got to listen. I've got to care. I've got to comfort. I've got to do all those things that a pastor would do. Second thing is you got to be a provider. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be the main breadwinner in the home, but you've got to provide the love and the support and the nourishment that she needs in her life to make sure that she has what she needs to be fully alive in the relationship. That you provide those things for her. You find out what she needs and you provide them. You find out what she needs and you give those things to her. And finally, third is protector. And I'm not just talking about protector physically. I mean, hopefully you are bigger than her. If you're not, she'll probably take you out. Just saying. And if some of these girls aren't bigger than you, but they could take you out because they're ninjas. But to be a protector, you're called to be a protector. And not just physically, guys, but as Christ loved the church, you are called to lay down your life for her if that ever came to be. You jump in front of that bullet. You jump in front of that train. Hopefully it's because she was there and you pushed her out of the way. So, honey, I love you. But I wasn't, what? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so you get what I'm saying. Protect her, guys, but just also protect her emotionally. Protect her emotionally, protect her physically, protect her emotionally, protect her heart, protect her soul, make her feel safe with you. Make her feel safe to trust you with those doubts that she has when she doubts God. Make her feel safe with you with the doubts and the hurts that she has when she doubts herself or her self-worth or her self-image. Make her feel safe to you to tell her, you know what, I did something at work and I feel so stupid. And I feel like if I told anyone else this, people would laugh at me. But I know I could tell you this because you protect me and I feel safe with you. And then when I'm done crying, we'll laugh together. But before that, if you laugh at me, you're sleeping on the couch. That's fine. But whatever, they feel safe emotionally. Girls, can you get an amen? Is this all right? Does it make sense or no? All right. So guys, be a pastor, be a provider, be a protector. And when you guys do, this crazy thing happens. And I've seen this over and over again. When girls feel safe in the relationship, when they feel safe in a marriage, there is a different kind of love and a different kind of intimacy that comes. And guys, you know what? I tell you what, girls are never really all that impressed with your body. Over and over again. Girls are just not, I mean, they can be impressed with your body for a while, but there's very few guys that fit that mold of, wow, he's a hottie with a body. Most of us guys are pretty darn average. But by girl standards, they're just not as visually oriented. They're like, okay, it's cool. But when they see that you're those things in their lives and they feel the freedom to open up with you intimacy-wise, there's just a whole different level of love and relationship that takes place. And there's an intimacy that can flourish. Again, I'm talking about in the context of marriage now. I'm not talking about the context of before that. So don't do this to get there because you're not doing the pastor-provider part then. But look at what she says. This is in Song of Solomon's, and I love this words here. I'm going to try to go through. She's talking about him now. And she's gone through her insecurities. She's gone through some of the things that she doubted. And then after the end of the chapter, we get in chapter 2, and she says this. She says, like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my beloved among the young men. Like he stands out. He's like an apple tree. All the other trees are plain, but this guy, he's got something to offer. He's got some fruit that I want. All right, so that's not what I was trying to get at. But I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. Now, this is talking about him being a provider, right? He's being for shelter. This tree is providing shelter and food and nourishment. Like he is taking care of her needs. You guys are bad. You guys are bad. All right. But picture that image, not the way that you were picturing it, but picture the image, the idea that he's saying that he is standing over me. I feel comfortable in what he's providing. I feel comfortable in his protection. I feel comfortable in what he's offering me. I have what I need, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. And he goes on, he says, let him lead me to the banquet hall, and let his banner over me be love. That when we go to the banquet hall together, when we go to get married, like when we're in that banquet hall and everyone else, when he puts up that banner about what this story is all about, he's celebrating my love for her. He says, and he goes on to say, strengthen me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am faint with love. Now, the word raisins there, this is a true story, and you could look it up, but the raisins really, in those days, were seen as like an aphrodisiac. But she says, I'm basically faint with love. I want him. But it's after she feels protected, after she feels secure, after she feels pastored, after she feels like she's been offered the opportunity to live God's best for her with him, does she feel this. And then she goes on to say that his left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. And I'll just give you a little picture of that. Like, his right arm, like, they're already like this, right? So, and she's basically saying, like, I'm ready for him. But it came out of a place of safety and intimacy and being provided for and being led towards God's best. And you cannot do that if first you don't have a godly character, and if second, you're not choosing to live with God and being a pastor, provider, protector. Now, a word to the girls. Booyah. That's it. You guys are perfect, because I have daughters, and I just don't want to say anything that's going to be... No, there's so many things I could have said and shared, but as I was talking about my girls and putting them up in front of the mirror, and I watch them grow, and I even see them, myself as a dad, just delighting in who they are, I want them to know where their beauty comes from. And so you're going to talk about your traits when you get into your C groups in just a couple minutes here, but know where your beauty comes from. Know where your worth comes from. Don't try to find it in somebody else. Don't try to make that guy meet those needs for you. Don't try to fulfill a gap or a void from that other guy, because in a sense, as much as you feel like he's using you for whatever, and you're giving him everything so he can fill that void, you're really using him to fill a void and an insecurity in you. And that will never end well. It'll always end in calamity. It'll always end in pain. Know where your beauty comes from. Know where your worth comes from. And it says this in 1 Peter, and I love this. He says, your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles or the wearing of gold or jewelry or fine clothes. Your beauty shouldn't come from the outside. Obviously, we hear that. It's kind of a catchphrase. It's cliche. Your beauty shouldn't come from the outside. It shouldn't come from what you wear. Don't use what you wear to attract the guy that you think you want. Because if the guy's attracted to the right things, he's going to be the guy that you want. And it's not going to be dependent on your looks, because the truth is your looks are going to fade. Your looks are going to go away. And if a guy truly loves you, and if a guy is truly there for you, and a guy is truly committed to be a godly man in your life, he's going to see you for how God sees you, and that's going to be beautiful. He's going to see your body as how God sees your body, and it's going to be beautiful. And he's going to see your heart as God sees your heart, and it's going to be beautiful. And so stop trying to work so much on this and focus on understanding who you are on the inside, because you will offer more to your guy than that. So many guys break intimacy with their women. They break intimacy in the relationships that they're with because they start to feel like their wife doesn't trust them, or their wife is insecure and constantly nagging them or asking them to fulfill a need that they don't believe that their husband wants to meet for them. And it causes an erosion, and it causes a separation. The whole time, a lot of times the girls feel like, he's just not offering me what I want. He's just not giving me what I need. It's his fault. It's his fault. And the guys, oftentimes more than not, I hear them say, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to give that person. I don't know what else to offer her, because she's just not taking what I see as enough. But I think the commitment in your own heart has to start with you understanding that your beauty and all those things and all those needs can't be met by him, and they're not going to be met by putting something on the outside. But it goes on to say this: rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. That word unfading is so good, because as we get older, all the things that we thought we'd have forever, we don't. And it's just reality. And I work in a church with multiple generations, and I love it. And I hear so many times the adults say, oh, I want to be young again. I heard one person say, I wish I was as thin as I was when I thought I was fat. That kind of thing. Great phrase, right? And I think she got it off of like a meme or something like that. But I was like, that's a pretty legit comment. Like where things move away, but he goes on to say the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. You got to be the kind of person that God wants and trust that is enough first. Everything else, you could celebrate your body, you could celebrate your looks, but you don't do that first. You start with beauty on the inside. And he goes on to say this. For this is the way the holy women of the past put their hope in God, used to adorn themselves. You adorn yourself with your trust in God. You adorn yourself with a beauty that comes from the inside. And I believe that when you start there, you're going to have more to offer of yourself in a relationship that's more secure with a guy because you're not waiting for him to tell you those things. And if the guys are being a pastor, provider, and protector, then you're never going to doubt it in your life because they're providing those things for you. So before you start, you need to decide, because right now you decide your tomorrow, today. Decide now. And if you're in a relationship right now and these things are maybe convicting you or bringing some things to light, maybe you need to have that conversation with the person. Be like, hey, that doesn't mean the relationship's over, but invite the conversation. And if you realize there's no interest or willingness to yield or really show true leadership in walking with God, that just means they're not ready for you right now. Maybe you need some separation. Maybe breaking up is the best thing you could do for them. Something happened with me, and we'll talk about this next week, so I'm not going to share it now. But so decide now, first, to be with someone that has godly character. And then guys, be a pastor, provider, and protector. Girls, know where your beauty truly comes from. And together, learn what it means to submit to one another and share the story of Jesus through your relationship to others. That can only happen when we make God our first priority. Let's pray. Jesus, I pray that you'd help us to sort this out in our C groups. That you'd help us to decide now the qualities and characteristics you're calling us to put first. But I pray it's not just an exercise in our C groups, but that this becomes a lifelong pursuit for us. God, for those in the room right now that are maybe struggling with feeling lonely or not having somebody, God, I pray that you'd help them to celebrate their singleness right now as an opportunity to become more like who you've made them to be. So as they do, they're ready for that person if you have someone in plans for them. And for those that are in a relationship right now, God, and maybe they aren't honoring you, God, would you give them the gentle, loving, and kind conviction that we need to maybe say, you know what, I need to change my ways. I need to change something about this relationship because it's not providing and producing the kind of relationship that you've called us for. In Jesus' name, amen. You guys have been awesome. Have a great week. See you next Monday. Go to your C groups.